And what you do, I think, especially on labor issues and a lot of economic issues, is distinctive. It matters.
It's not just yeah, and it's not just that it matters. You look around, and Ron's been through this, obviously, being a traveling comic, and seeing how just the whole system has shifted in a way that comics were always the anti-establishment people, and yet over the past several years, we've seen so many that just kind of kowtow to the power vacuum. And I'm thinking that that's also reflective in what's happened with local newspapers. It's like these billionaires buy up all of the publication. And I'm wondering where it actually stems from. I mean, the easy answer would probably be, Reagan overturning the Fairness Doctrine and Clinton passing the Telecom Act. And they're probably all interwoven, I guess, in some way.
I think it can be, but I think one thing, and Ron probably has some better and deeper ideas on this, but one of the things I would say is that what happened is whenever you develop a new platform, right? If it was the printing press, in the 15th century, if it's radio in the early 20th century, television in the mid 20th century, there's always a sense that, wow, this is going to solve all our problems, right? Well, corporate power always colonizes whatever platform is developed, right? It takes it over. And so that's what you saw with print journalism. That's what you saw with radio. That's what you saw with TV. And frankly, that's what we've seen with the internet as well. And so the internet comes along, and instead of saying, wow, there's this new platform that's going to allow us to get immense amounts of information, how do we make sure that that's actually useful and sustaining to democracy? And, the answer is that we didn't do that. We left it to the market, right? And the market, developed, incredibly successful porn industries and things like that. But it didn't do much to develop actual journalism and to develop a system where journalism and communications and analysis and insight is prioritized over lies, propaganda, fantasy, etc., and commercialism. And so, the platform of the internet has replaced, in many ways, previous platforms, especially I think that's happening with print media. And it's not doing so in a way that brings any strength, right? It by and large is giving us something that it's a cacophony, it's a slurry without much support or sustenance of journalism. And I think that's sort of the crisis at this point. Losing the Fairness Doctrine mattered. The allowing of media consolidation with the 1996 Telecom Act, things like that, all that mattered. But then on top of that is that as a country in the United States, we don't plan. We don't plan for anything, right? We just sort of let it happen and say that the market is going to solve our problems. And if I'm going to have a Festivus grievance, that's it. We have a lack of planning in America. And you say, well, how come the United Kingdom has the BBC? How come Germany has 7 public broadcasting networks? How come, a country like Germany spends, or a country like Norway spends, 70, 80 times as much as we do in the US on public and community media? The answer to that is that they planned. We don't.
Yeah, I first of all, Chris, thank you. Lucy is doing well. Lucy's my cat, if anyone was not aware. But yeah, she's doing well. She's rummaging around here somewhere. But I don't want to just sort of overlap a lot of what you said, John. I mean, excellent points. One thing I would add that I'm sure you're in total agreement with. We're also seeing this sort of monopolization of the internet and attempts to impose some antitrust in the digital space. And this is coming from a guy who's been part of a lot of digital rights campaigns, have fallen flat. And I think a reason for that is just society's not quite ready for it yet. I mean, we're in this crazy place where technology is going way faster than policy can. And that sort of plays into, all the other things here. Another place I would go here, based on the topic that started all this, I live in Los Angeles. So this year I got to experience the industry being shut down for pretty much the entire year up to and including present, because everything shuts down in December anyway. Why was it shut down? Well, because of a bunch of studio executives' greed. They didn't want to give the writers what they were asking for, which was a very fair ask. They didn't want to give the actors what they were asking for, which was a very fair ask. I was on the picket lines, just like a bunch of other people. And it was really, really tragic that it happened. But, you know, you had a bunch of these executives and CEOs. They were getting their short-term bonuses by letting the strike continue. So why should they give a hoot? They also, you know, had a bunch of content coming in from other places. So why should they give a hoot? Although there were places around the world that stood in solidarity with us. When I was in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, all the writers guilds over there were standing with the US, which was pretty cool to see. But anyway, I think that you're seeing that capitalism is very incompatible with creativity and the creative class, and capitalism is very incompatible with journalism, which I think is a paraphrase of one of the quotes in Problem with the Media. But yeah, you're seeing journalism takes resources, it takes planning, it takes bandwidth. And a lot of entities just don't want to do it because it might tick their advertisers off. And because they just don't want to spend the money when that could be going to shareholders. That's why you see the corporate media tragically failing on every level. And then going into kind of the creator space, I mean, we're just seeing how capitalism is incompatible with being a creative. You know, you mentioned being a touring comic. Touring as a performer, whether you're a musician, comedian, poet, whatever, has gotten infinitely harder over the past 2 or 3 years for a large list of reasons. You know, door deals are getting more and more difficult. They're wanting more, you're getting less. It's unsustainable for pretty much everyone involved, which is causing a lot of artists, myself being among them, to go to the countries where, hey, it's hard here as well, but they actually spend money on the arts. The United States is one of the few countries where the arts isn't considered a part of life and an essential part of being human. It's considered a luxury. So other countries outspend us about 10-1 in the arts. And even that 10-1 figure is misleading because guess where the one actually goes? The military.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if I can just add on that,
Please.
Looking back a little bit at 2023, a year that I'm pretty happy to let go. But I will say that one of the highlights of 2023 was what actors and writers did. And that was in this long, painful strike. And it's hard. Look, I cover labor for a living. I know people who've been on strike for long periods of time. It's not easy, right? There's a lot of solidarity at the start. There's a lot of excitement, but then there is a sense of, you know, when is this going to end? When are we going to get our, you know, life back together? How are we going to make things, you know, work? And it can be very anxious, very uncertain, etc. But what the writers and the actors did was that they brought issues of AI into negotiations. And if we go back to what I was talking about a couple minutes ago about that in the United States, we never plan. It's capital that doesn't plan, right? I mean, it plans to make a lot of money. It doesn't plan to do things for society. Unions actually do sometimes force planning. They force some thinking about the future. And that's what the writers and actors did. And I will say, again, if I get to have another Festivus gripe, that most of our media did not cover the actors' strike and the writers' strike with a perspective of what was really going on. They was like, oh, there's these creative people, they want more money, etc. Maybe they got some complaints about AI and stuff. They didn't understand. This is a definitional moment, right? If the writers and the actors didn't intervene at this point, if they did not strike at this point and push their messages as hard as they did, even though they didn't get everything they wanted, these industries would have developed in a way that would never have gone back, right? You would have lost, you know, huge amounts of creative control for working artists, for working writers. And so this was an incredibly important strike. I mean, an epic struggle. And it got covered some. I give it its due, but certainly not sufficiently. And so gripe about that. but also a compliment to the people that went out and did the strike.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.